Painting techniques. Art lesson with Ms.Boley. So this is what we're going to learn today. We're going to look at some different ways that we can make texture using paint, and then we're going to try them out on our own. All right, so here are the supplies that you're going to need. So I am using Tempera paint, which is shown here in this picture, but you can also use acrylic paint. I'm using a piece of cardboard to do my painting on, but if you'd like, you can use a piece of paper or your visual journal. I just used the cardboard because it's able to handle having wet paint on it a little bit better than the regular paper. I'm also using paintbrushes and a cup of water so I can wash my brush, and paper towel. I've also grabbed a found object, a plastic fork, so I can use it to make texture. For this assignment, a plastic fork works really well to make kind of texture that looks like fur. So that's why I picked that object. You're welcome to pick a different object if you have something else you'd like to try. So here is a list of the materials you're going to need using words. If you would like to pause the video here and go and grab the items that you're going to need. All right, let's get started. All right, so I'm going to choose a color and I'm going to paint just a little area of my background. And now I'm going to put my brush down. I'm going to use my finger to paint. So you can explore, I'm just using my finger to kind of dab. You can explore some different methods. You can swipe. You can use kind of whatever method you choose with your finger. So that's one way. Another thing you can do, here let me paint a little area again. So you can use your fingernail, the back of your fingernail, to actually sort of scratch off the paint. So I'm painting a light color pink underneath, and I'm painting a darker color of blue on top. I'm going to use the back of my fingernail to do little swipes and sort of scratch off the paint. And it looks really cool because you can see both of the colors. All right, there you go. So now I'm going to paint another little area. So I always am kind of starting out with a background area as a base that I'm painting. So I'm not just left with the cardboard, the color of the cardboard. All right, now I'm going to use my found object, my fork. And I'm just going to dip it into the paint and use it to dab on top of the area that I painted. It looks really cool. It looks kind of like fur. All right, now I'm going to also paint an area. And this one I'm going to use my paper towel. I'm going to crumple it up into a ball, and I'm just going to dab on top of it. And you know, you could also dab your paper towel into some paint and on top of it and see what happens if you do that. All right, so next I'm going to use some silver paint and paint a little area. And this technique is called pointillism. So it's just using little dots. You can use dots of just one color of paint, or you can use several different colors of paint. So what I do is I dip my brush into the paint, and then I just dab the brush up and down against the paper. And it makes different sizes depending on how forcefully, how hard I'm tapping on the page. And it also depends on if my brush is running out of paint. So I don't have to dip back in every single dot. I do a few dots and then I dip back in. That looks pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to paint an area here, and I'm going to let it dry a little bit before I do a technique on top of it. So most of these I haven't been letting the under area dry, but you can experiment and see what happens if you do. So let's move on to a different one. This one is called blending. So what I'm going to do is I'll paint a stripe of one color that I want to blend into another color. And then I didn't really wash my brush, I just kind of wiped it off. I'm going to paint a stripe of another color really close up to it, but not overlapping. And then suddenly I do overlap just a little bit, and I use my brush back and forth to blend the two together. I just brush over top of the middle part to blend the two together. That's pretty cool. All right, so with this one I need to dry my brush off. I'm using my paper towel and getting it as dry as I can. So I don't want too much water, I just want paint. And I'm gonna put my brush into my paint. And again, I'm gonna kind of not get too much paint on it, just a little bit. And then I'm just doing some strokes using a dry brush on top of my area of color that I had laid down earlier. And this kind of gives a similar texture that kind of looks almost like fur as well. And it depends on kind of how your brush, what kind of brush you're using, how it looks. All right, so your job now is to try out at least 3 of the techniques that I just showed you. You can try out more if you like, but try at least 3. Here are the techniques that we did, if you wanted to pause the video here so that you can remember what the techniques looked like. So we had finger painting, scratching with the back of our fingernail, using a found object, a fork, creating dots using a paintbrush or doing pointillism, blending using a paintbrush, using a paper towel to dab on top of the paint to create that bumpy texture, and dry brushing. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching.